I was at a show, a festival the other day, and there was a conversation about men's mental health, and I ran in because it's a subject that I've studied a lot, like mental health broadly, and looked at the real neuroendocrinology of mental health and the good and the bad. And I went in there and I heard a lot of what I always hear from life coaches or personal trainers talking about mental health and changing mental health. So it's certainly with people that are obviously struggling with depression, anxiety, addiction, whatever it might be. And it seemed really obvious that they were talking a lot about talking and accepting vulnerability and making sure people are talking about their problems and accepting that their problems aren't unique to them. And I always get really frustrated because a lot of the time that's the solution that's given. So I have this problem and I'm going to talk. And actually, when you look at the statistics around people that are talking about their mental health with qualified professionals and organizations that are set up to support people that are struggling. For example, the stats around men's mental health are not good when it comes to suicide. But if you look at men that are taking their own lives, the amount of those men that have engaged in some form of professional mental health support is quite high. So what that kind of tells me is talking about it isn't the solution. And so if our conversation about mental health leads us to an action that I know is grounded in evidence and my experience of things that nearly 100% of the time help people shift their mental health towards the green. You know, if we've got a needle and we're in the red, I just want to get you moving towards the green. When we're in the green, I want to give you a load of tools to keep you there. Then that's a really positive thing. But a lot of these conversations are like, yeah, let's just talk about it. We'll just talk about it and just keep talking about it. And that's not enough. And I always think with these people, I want to ask them, like clinically, what do you think depression is? And often they'll give you an answer like, well, it's not sadness. It's a very different feeling. It's when I feel like this or this person felt like this. And I think that's when you get into the minutiae of context, which becomes very challenging because actually, when you speak to mental health support coaches, one of the things that they say they hear the most from people that are sat down, you know, talking to them about their challenges is that I bet you've never spoken to somebody like me. I bet you've never heard somebody with my kind of problem or problems, because everybody thinks their problems are really unique. And so what I always kind of want to say to people is like, what is that foundation in terms of your nervous system and your hormone system and your lifestyle that causes these problems? And what challenges do they create in changing that behavior? You know, I always love Jimmy Carr's line about mental health when he talks about people getting confused between hardware and software. So it's like people are going, oh, my software, my mental health's not in a great place right now. And he was he had this bit on stage where he was talking to this guy and he was like, think about your hardware for a bit, right? So make sure you're sleeping well, get outside, do some exercise, eat some good food, and then see how you feel. Because I bet the software feels different when you nurture and invest in positive behaviors for the hardware. And he's right on, you know, with that approach. One of the things I always want to ask people when they're talking about mental health, and especially like depression, is what's the most powerful natural antidepressant in the world? Because if you're going to talk about depression, you should probably be pretty clued up on what powerful natural antidepressants are. And they always look at me so blankly. And you think, oh my God, you're on a stage in front of a lot of people talking about mental health, talking about depression, and you don't know what the most powerful natural antidepressant in the world is, which is oxytocin. And we can have it for free. And there are specific actions that can help people develop it. And I think that at school, we kind of learned about oxytocin, not wrong. So you make oxytocin when you have sex and you make a baby, which is true. The 20-second hug rule is another one, right? So there's lots of interactions that we can create. And we put it into a framework that I call ETS. So exhilaration, trust, and social cheering. So if I find out that you're struggling with your mental health and you're in a state of depression, right? And that a lot of time manifests itself in an unwillingness to change your routine. So that is this unbelievable challenge to overcome. So what do you need to do with a depressed person? Make them action something. What does a depressed person not want to do? Action anything. To the point where low oxytocin enables you to lie to yourself and to others about why you don't want to change your routine. It creates an unbelievable resilience to change and a vulnerability to addiction. So you go, we've got to get this guy to action something, and he doesn't want to action anything. And you want to talk about it? I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to drag him kicking and screaming to the skate park because there's exhilaration, right? It's dangerous and we're going to survive it together. And there's a lot of trust involved there. So if that person needs some advice about how to drop in on a ramp or how to rollerblade or whatever it might be, right? And they've got to trust the equipment. They've got to trust their helmet. They've got to trust a lot of things. And the other thing you see in situations like skate parks isn't just social interaction. It's not just we're going to talk banter, but there's this cheering, social cheering, where you go, mate, that was amazing, when it was rubbish. But in the grand scheme of things, we can still cheer each other on because I can see where your limit is and I can see you pushing it. And that excites me, and me getting excited about it excites you about the thing. So social cheering is a lot more than you and me just talking. It's me really amping you up and me wanting you to win. And I think as soon as you almost become a teenager, it feels like that stops. It feels like everybody's at 10 years old is going, go Jimmy, you can score the goal in the football match. And you become a teenager and you go to secondary school and everybody goes, you idiot, I can't believe you just did that. And then you go, cool, I'm going to literally go inward and never ever try again. And we see that in teenagers. They start to want to try things less and less and less. And I think it's so much more kind of anxiety is given to them by those reactions where nobody's cheering from them anymore. Like as an adult, how many times does somebody cheer you on? And that's something we all need.